Right, guys, very welcome to the Ravit Show, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, whoever are joining from different parts of the world. Today, I'm very happy because I have David P. Mariani as my guest on the Ravit Show. David is the CTO and founder at AtScale. Prior to AtScale, he was the VP of Engineering at Cloud and at Yahoo, where he built the world's largest multi-dimensional cube for BI on Hadoop. He was also the CTO and founder at Mindshare. He has over 2 decades of experience as a CTO delivering big data, consumer internet advertising, and hosted service platforms, creating nearly $800 million in company exits. David is a big data visionary and serial entrepreneur. Today, we will discuss about his journey, semantic layer, convergence of AI and BI, analytics, and much more. I can't wait to hear more from David because semantic layer is something that we've been hearing a lot, but David is here to let us know and give more information about it. So that's what we'll be doing. Also, what we have a good news for the audience today is AtScale has been kind to us and they have offered a swag that they will be giving to a winner by end of the show. So what you need to do is just mention hashtag AtScale and you get into the raffle. And by end of the show, we'll be announcing the winners. I already see Bilal who's here and hashtag AtScale is here. Wow, Kate is here. Hey, Kate. Thanks for joining. Robin is here. Thank you very much. For everyone joining in, please feel free to mention AtScale, hashtag AtScale, and you'll enter the raffle. Let's have our guest. Hey, David. Welcome to the Ravit Show. How are you?
Hi, Ravit. Nice to see you again.
Oh, fantastic. David, I was just letting folks know about our agenda for today, about what we'll be discussing, about your journey, and obviously about semantic layer. So why not start with your introduction for our audience?
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for having me, Ravit, on the show. So I'm Dave Mariani. I'm the CTO and co-founder of AtScale, and so I've been involved in data and big data for quite some time now. And had the pleasure of working with some great people at AtScale to really take an idea like a semantic layer and make it real for our customers.
This is amazing. And just for our audience, obviously, Dave, people hear a lot around semantic layer, and everyone have a different opinion around it. But would love to hear what are the practical. First thing, what is semantic layer for our audience?
Yeah, semantic layer has actually been around for a long time. If you remember, I mean, I'm dating myself, but business objects sort of created that whole concept of a semantic layer with what they called the business objects universe. And what was really sort of important at the time was that it was a logical layer. It was a business friendly layer. So rather than speaking in tables and columns and bits and bytes, it was a business friendly syntax with things like gross margin and sales and month and product. So real sort of business friendly terms to describe the business and to translate the physical data into a logical layer. So that was sort of the birth of the semantic layer, and that's what made OLAP platforms so popular and so powerful. You had the speed of OLAP, but you also had that business-friendly interface. But up until very recently, up until really when we started the company in 2013, the semantic layer has always been coupled with consumption. So yes, MicroStrategy has a semantic layer. Yes, Cognos has a semantic layer. Even Tableau has a semantic layer in each individual workbook. So our innovation, Ravit, was to take the semantic layer and make it an independent of consumption, as well as independent of data storage. So it's a layer that sits in between, which means that it is truly universal, which means you can plug and play. And whether you're using Tableau or Power BI or even Excel, everybody speaking the same language and getting access to that same business-friendly interface. So we were the first to really decouple the semantic
Exactly.
layer and create a universal semantic layer. So that's really our innovation.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And to where did the actual idea come from? So back in 2013 when you started, was it the first time when you got into the semantic layer, or was it initially a little different and then you got into the weeds more?
Yeah, it's like I've had this idea for a long time, but in terms of putting it into practice was tough.
Yeah.
And I think the kick in the pants really came when for my tenure at Yahoo. And so Yahoo was the
Mm.
first sort of company where I've always been a startup guy, and we sold Blue Lithium, which was an ad network, into Yahoo. So all of a sudden, I'm working at a very large organization.
Mhm.
And they put me in charge of analytics for that large organization, which meant that I had to deliver data to the business.
Exactly.
And it was a very complex environment, Ravit. So we had MicroStrategy, we had Tableau, we had ClickView, we had Excel, and we had custom applications. I had Yahoo Labs, who was always give me data, give me data.
Yeah.
2,500 data scientists at a time
Oh
in
my.
2010 when data science was still something um, very unfamiliar to people. So everybody needed data, but they all needed data to be able to put into their own tooling and create their own
Hmm.
semantic layers. And at the end of the day, when Jerry Yang, our CEO, asked, how many page views did we serve yesterday? Everybody had a different answer. And it was and you think about a page view, that's not a complicated metric at all, is it? Although
Hmm.
it is when you consider, was it a unique page view? Was it a total sum of page views? What time period? When's the last time the data was refreshed? What was the
Hmm.
cutoff? And so I struggled with really data quality and creating a single source of truth. I just couldn't do it, even though because I lost control of that data once I handed it over to each of these business groups and they imported it into their own tools. So
Hmm.
I really wanted a semantic layer, a data API, data as a service, where I could produce a data set and then let my users consume it as they saw fit, but all with playing by the same rules. So I call it self-service with guardrails. So
Wow.
I don't want to do reporting. That's like, I don't know the business the way that they
Right.
know the business. They're the subject matter experts. So give them the data they need, but give it to them with quality and
Hmm.
with consistency, regardless of how they choose to consume it, including the data scientists. If they're building models, they should get access to the same semantic layer and the same business terms under the same conditions as their next door neighbor who's trying to build a dashboard, or their application developer who is trying to build an application that is based on data.
Oh, these are super cool insights. They have actually, hearing that where there are like 2,500 data scientists sitting in 2010, it is kind of, and those were the early days. And, maybe you've identified it at the right time, and it does make a lot of sense. So, moving forward, let's take a few questions coming in from the audience. These are questions. Okay, Kate has a question, very interesting one. Why is it important to make the semantic layer independent of consumption?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kate. It's if the semantic layer is tied to the consumption layer, it means that you don't have a single universal semantic layer. So,
Hmm.
so let me give you an example of um, even within Tableau. Tableau, has users will model data and they'll still connect physically to the data, directly to the data schemas, and then they'll model that data. So even within Tableau, somebody
Hmm.
may create a dashboard for gross margin, and that calculation for gross margin for that dashboard may be very different than the person in the next desk over who is creating their own dashboard using Tableau. So right within Tableau, if you do calculations, you do modeling within the consumption layer, you're bound to get differences. And then if you have a MicroStrategy, which has a semantic layer, and then you have Tableau, which has a semantic layer, and then you have Power BI, which has a semantic layer, you can
Right.
guarantee that each of those different groups are going to have a different definition of gross margin, for example. And so that's why the semantic layer really needs to be independent, because if it's not, you're just back to the beginning of chaos and
Right.
inconsistency and people fighting over the numbers because everybody has defined their own version of reality.
Right. I'm sure this definitely answers for Kate, and great explanation there, Dave. Thanks for that. Okay, picking another question from the audience. How would you explain semantic layer to a layman now?
Yeah, that's a great question because we've been talking about, and I've been talking about semantic layers since 2013, and
Exactly.
it's 8 years later now, and now everybody's talking about semantic layers.
So
So it
true.
took a long time to sort of get that point across. The way I would explain a semantic layer um, is the semantic layer serves as a business-friendly interface to your data.
Hmm.
So it allows everyone in an organization to make data-driven decisions. And what I mean by everyone is, it's not just about the data scientist or the data engineer or the analytics Jedi. That's sort of the realm of who gets to use analytics today.
Hmm.
And really, to be successful and to get the most out of the data that you collect, you need to make sure that it's usable by everyone. And that means somebody who's
Very
using
true.
an Excel spreadsheet should be able to get access to that same data and understand that and ask a question of, what was my gross margin by product for last year
Hmm.
compared to the previous year. So, it's a very simple way of asking a question, but we make users jump through such hoops that make them rely on other people to answer that question for them, even though
Hmm.
they're the subject matter expert. And so I would say a semantic layer makes data consumable for everyone in your organization, not just the data experts.
Wow. Great explanation. Thanks for that question, Aditi. Okay, Dave, obviously, it's been there for a while, like you mentioned, and I know for a fact where you have, obviously introduced it back in 2013. So, what has changed from back then to now in 2021? What's the difference?
Well, back in 2013 when we started the company, I was at Yahoo, like I mentioned,
Yeah.
and we invented Hadoop. So I saw Hadoop as a real game changer because
Hmm.
we burst beyond the single node data warehouse. And yes, you had Oracle, who had Oracle RAC, which is sort of like a cluster system, but not
Hmm.
very not very elegant, right? And we moved to this sort of shared nothing architecture of a cluster where you could have commodity hardware and lay
Right.
out your data, and it got spread across that whole cluster. And so I really thought that was a game changer in terms of really being able to address the problem of big data, of which Yahoo was big data in 2010. There weren't
Right.
many other big data shops. And so the semantic layer first was tied to Hadoop
Okay.
as a data platform, and so we started out selling AtScale as a semantic layer for Hadoop. But what we
Hmm.
found out, Ravit, is that Hadoop was really hard for our customers to operate.
Hmm.
So since the semantic layer is talking to Hadoop, our success was really tied to our customers' success in managing their Hadoop infrastructure. And
Right.
and honestly, it's like enterprise companies are not in the business to manage data clusters. They're in Home Depot is in the business to sell goods through their stores. And Tyson Foods is in the business of producing products for people to eat, and to expect that they would be able to have the expertise to be able to manage Hadoop is it's kind of absurd now that I look at it.
Hmm.
So what really happened in the big pivot really was, as Hadoop got more difficult and sort of that it's the goal of Hadoop didn't really measure up to reality.
Hmm.
The vision of Hadoop didn't measure up to reality. we started to see the birth of the cloud data warehouse. It started with Google BigQuery, and then Snowflake came on the scene. And really, Amazon Redshift was the sort of first pioneering solution there. And so, so the big change is that we didn't change the platform at all. We didn't change the concept of the semantic layer. But what we did is we expanded it to more data platforms, including traditional data platforms like Oracle, SQL Server, and Teradata, but more importantly, the cloud data platforms like the Google BigQueries, the Amazon Redshifts, the Snowflakes, and the Databricks, and that really launched things for us, because we were able to ride that wave as enterprises abandoned their on-premise data infrastructure and they modernized in the cloud. And when they modernized in the cloud, they took a step back and they said, what should we do differently this time? And the semantic layer became an obvious difference, because they saw the cost of tightly coupling consumption to a particular data platform. And that tight coupling meant that they didn't have really, everything was retooling. If they ever had to use another data platform, everything downstream broke. And so our message of create a firewall between your data platforms and your consumption layer, so that you have the freedom to choose the best data platform for the job now and in the future, and the best way to consume, or the way people want to consume, and you plug and play. And that was a message that really resonated with enterprises.
Wow, I think that's like the the best story I've heard, at least how things have modernized now. Okay, Dave, I know there are a lot of questions, but let's take a few questions from the audience, which are more on the modernized side. P. Karthik has a question here. What's the advantage of having a semantic layer in reporting or data visualization tools?
Yeah, it's to me, it's about ease of use. So, when you think about, look, I love Tableau, and I adopted Tableau way back in the day when the VP of sales actually sold me. So, I'm a big believer of Tableau. But look, I'm a developer. I write code, and I understand databases really well, because I've worked in them for decades. And so I'm able to get what I needed to get out of Tableau by having to model the data in Tableau before I could do the dashboard. So for people who are using data visualization tools and reporting tools, what a semantic layer does is the modeling is already done, and it's done by somebody who understands the physical layout of the data. And so the person using the visualization tool can deal with simple business terms, like time, like product, like region, like gross margin, like sales. And rather than worrying about how to connect table A to table B, and then aggregate it, and then get the right answer, and then join it to your customer table, which may be, in 10 million rows, and then somehow make it all work in their lifetime. And so we just simplify. The semantic layer simplifies. That's as much as I could say. And it aligns the best people for the job. So the best people to create the semantic layer are those who understand the physical data. The best people to leverage and use the semantic layer are the subject matter experts who will know the business and know what questions that they need to ask to improve the business and improve customer experience.
All right. This definitely answers for P. Karthik. Thanks for that question. Also, on the side where we can talk little about the company adoption, Kate had a question where she's asking, what advice do you have for successful semantic layer adoption within a company?
Yeah, look, and it depends on, the size of the company. We deal with a lot of very complex enterprises, so there's a lot of legacy there. And I think that the best approach is it's crawl, walk, run. I think the first thing to do is to identify a use case where there's a lot of pain, and the pain usually is involving a lot of steps and getting and rendering some kind of analysis, and those steps usually require a bunch of data copies and data extracts and the like, and so it's very difficult once you have some analysis or you have some dashboards created, just getting the data refreshed. And so I like to say, let's start with using the semantic layer to solve a real problem, so we can prove success. And then what we do is we can fan out from there, and drive that semantic layer for more use cases to deliver more value. But first, get that win, and don't try to boil the ocean.
Right.
Go where the pain is, solve that pain, and then prove it, and then you'll get adoption, and you can drive the adoption from there.
Gotcha. This is definitely very insightful. Let's also welcome a few people who are joining in. Hey, Suzanne, thanks for joining. Dustin is here, and Dustin does agree with one of your point, in my opinion, from my experience. An important insight from Dave that might be glossed over note. He said the VP sales sold me on Tableau. So adoption in a business and new technology is orders of magnitude easier when you have a key business stakeholder and a technology expert like Dave working together to make it happen. 100%.
Yeah, Dustin, you're exactly right. It's you can't have success without, it's always been a war on IT, and IT has always had a war on the business user, because the IT is always like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing, and they're asking me for new data all the time. And then business and the business is like, you're locking away, you're keeping me from my data, give it to me faster. And in my experience, those teams need to work together and have a shared goal. And the goal is to make the business better. And so if you allow people to do what they do best and work as a team, allow IT to create that data as a service. That's what they want to do. They don't want to do reporting. They don't understand what gross margin is, but the business does. So working together in a semantic layer is a great communication layer. It's a great way to communicate between IT and the business, and make it so it's not adversarial, but it's working together.
Wow. Yeah, makes sense, Dave. Also, I want to actually combine my question to another question which is asked in the audience. Daksh Canvasser is asking, what do you think is the best approach to get into analytics? And my question would be, do you think analytics is just for data engineers?
Yeah, look, our vision is that, and we're look, it's our vision, and we're helping our customers get there, but there's a long ways to go into making everybody a data-driven decision maker, and it's largely because we make it so hard for the person who is managing inventory, or the person who is managing customer service, to get access to data. And so look, how did I get into analytics? I got into analytics because I was trying to answer a question for the business, and it forced me to have to go and learn where the data was to get an answer to that question. And then what the process was to ask the question. So I think that you can get into analytics by working in the business and being a subject matter expert. And I think I've said this before. It's much easier for a subject matter expert, a business user, to learn data than it is somebody in data to learn the business. And so I would say start in the business and learn about analytics and how it all is put together. And that's a good way, because you'll have value as a business user, just like your last user said. It's like combining business knowledge with a little bit of technical knowledge is a powerful combination. And that's something I did for my whole career. I graduated from UCLA as an economics major. I had absolutely zero technology background. And my first job was a consulting job, and they said, I heard that you like to write code as your hobby, so can you go and write this for our customer? And I was like, what? I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
But it's always is great to come from the business side, and then be able to acquire some technical skills to make you a better decision maker.
Wow, this is great. And I agree 100% in terms of being the problem solver for the business. And you get there, you can do different things. And coming from an economics background and coding now is fantastic, Dave. Thanks for sharing that experience. Okay, Dave, I have another question for you, which is more on the lines of tools. So, which according to you, like what according to you are the best tools for data analysts?
Well, that's a great question, and I have to be careful because we're sort of the Switzerland of data platforms and BI tools.
Yeah.
But I could say like from a data platform. Let's start with the data platform side, the cloud data
Yeah.
platform. Uh, there's good ones out there.
Hmm.
I really like Snowflake a lot, and the reason why I like Snowflake is that um, they took the concept of separating compute and storage and really did it. So,
Hmm.
you know, the ultimate the problem with Hadoop was that compute and storage was stored on the same node. And while that was seemed like a great idea from the ability to fan out, the ability to scale, because you just add more computers and now you have more space as well.
Right.
The problem with that is that it's very rigid. So if I need to grow and expand my compute power, it meant adding more hardware and then also taking that data and now redistributing that data to that new hardware. So it
Hmm.
wasn't easy to do. What Snowflake did is they said all our data is going to sit on S3, and that we're going to bring compute, t-shirt size compute clusters, small, medium,
Wow.
large, extra large, to operate on that data. And that means that customers, and you can have multiple compute clusters operating on the same data. So
Hmm.
finance may get a large cluster because they're closing the books, while
Exactly.
marketing gets a small cluster during the month because they're just doing their ordinary work.
Right.
And they're all operating on the same physical data, but they have
Hmm.
different compute profiles, and that's really powerful. Besides the fact it's a really fast data platform, so I like that a lot. Um,
Hmm.
on the BI front, the visualization front, I've always been a fan of Tableau, as you know, as I said,
Yeah.
and it continues to be a great tool. It's great to see people just be able to open up Tableau and get connect to some data, especially with the semantic layer,
Hmm.
and instantly be productive. That's the power of that tool. I think Power BI is really coming on, and we see Power BI everywhere now in our customer base, in our new prospects. And Power BI has taken the Tableau concept and they've basically made it free, which means now everybody can be a power user and create really beautiful visualizations.
Exactly.
Where in the Tableau world, it cost money, and so you had to be worthy to get access to
Yeah.
those tools. So I like both of those tools for those different reasons. One is more ubiquitous and free, and everybody can get access to it. The other is just super powerful and user friendly at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Those are amazing insights. Thank Dave. Dustin here agrees with you, having spent most of my time in the business, but also holding roles from analyst to analytics director. I definitely support Dave's advice on the value of business knowledge, tech having one plus one is equal to three effect in value added, 100%.
Yeah, Dustin. So on the product side, it also really helps. Like, so I
Hmm.
after in my first job, that consulting firm turned into a software company. And so I got to be able to go through that transition. And as a when you're building products, being able to talk and understand the customer and have empathy for the customer because you were one
Exactly.
is a really powerful asset when you also can put that together uh, with how you deliver software and how you would deliver a technical solution.
Hmm.
And so I always encourage people that I talk to is that work in the business, even if you're a technologist, don't look at it as like, oh, those people over there and it's use your own product. And try to do a real job with your product. I force myself to do that all the time because you see just where the rough edges are and where people are going to get frustrated when you have to do a real job with your own product.
Exactly.
And for me, I always did that with, whatever opportunity I could find. Monitoring was always a good one. Use my product to do analytics on our operations. And so it's a real use case that delivers real value that forces you to use your own product. So every engineer out there, every technologist, please, please, find a way and find a use case where you can use your own product yourself to do the job, and it will make you a much better engineer and a much better product person.
Fantastic. Since Dave, you are sharing about your journey, I would love to take this question from Manisha, which is interesting. What is one of the most challenging projects you've come across in the years in the field of analytics? Any learnings?
Yeah, well, look, I think that making a semantic layer work has been the hardest thing I've ever done. And the reason why it was hard is that for semantic layer to be truly universal, it needs to connect to every data platform that people want, and then the tools and the consumption tools need to connect to it, and you have to service the business users, the data scientists, and the application developers. And so what happens is that when you have that matrix of having to plug everything in that speaks different languages, to have different dialects, and then talk to these different platforms, which could be data lakes as well as data warehouses, who all have their own implementations of SQL, even though it's supposed to be a standard, it's really hard. And so it was really hard to do that and just test it all. Because if you look at the testing matrix, it is enormous. And so so that was the hardest thing I think I ever did. And, we're here 8 years later. I could tell you it probably took us 5-6 years to get it right. And it was a hard thing to do. And a lot of companies and a lot of other solutions out there took the easy way out. But we're hardheads at AtScale. And so we just didn't want to let it go. It's like, we know we lived our own, we lived the problem of our customers. We walked in their shoes. And so we know what we wanted, and we weren't willing to compromise on that with our architecture, even though it was hard to deliver. And so so I think that's really that by far the hardest thing that I've ever done has been building a semantic layer a la AtScale.
Wow, fair enough. And you've given like 5 to 6 years just for the implementation, which is huge, and it came out very right. So Dave, thanks for sharing your experience there. Also, for the folks who are joining us, just a quick reminder that AtScale is giving us swag. We already have 12 entries. I will be actually doing the raffle by end of the show. There'll be 2 winners, so feel free to put in hashtag AtScale in the comments, and we'll announce the winners. Maybe we'll announce the first winner and sometime in the last winner by end of the show. Okay, all right, moving more into the weeds. Just wanted to learn more about what, according to you, are the changes that AI will bring in 2022 and in the coming years, Dave.
Yeah, so artificial intelligence, gosh, AI and ML and machine learning is a lot like, it feels a lot like analytics was in the beginning. And in that it still is it is a discipline that requires a very high bar of technical knowledge to be able to make work. And so, Tableau really sort of gets credit, I think, for democratizing analytics, because they brought a very friendly end user oriented approach to being able to explore data, which meant a lot more people could do it without having to have all the skills that traditionally you had to have to be able to ask an answer of data, ask a question of data. I think AI and ML is there now, and so you're starting to see these auto ML platforms like Data IQ and Data Robot, and then Amazon SageMaker, where they're starting to sort of automate and put an application around the process of building a model for data science so you can get a prediction, and helping to automate and choose the best model for a particular use case. So you're starting to see that democratization. But I think the real democratization of AI and ML is when you combine it with BI. So you can have a data scientist who's going to create some amazing prediction, and that amazing prediction could be deployed in an application or in an operation, or it could be delivered to a handful of business users who can use that prediction to make a business decision. To me, that's not scalable. You need to be able to embed AI and ML into the tools that the whole business is using. And so what you're seeing is trends like you're seeing trends where augmented intelligence is being added to tools like BI, tools
Exactly.
like Tableau and like Power BI, where they're going to do things like outlier analysis. So when you're drilling around, they're going to say this looks different, and they're going to zoom you in there. And
Hmm.
I like to think of it as like, it's finding the needle in the haystack. And when you think about how people like use BI tools today, they ask question and question, question after question after question. And the reason why they have
Right.
to ask so many questions because they haven't found what they're looking for. So if we can use machines to help people find what they're looking for without having to ask so many questions, that's a big win. And that's where
Hmm.
I think AI and ML goes, is that we start to embed those algorithms and that process into the tools that people use every day to make people smarter. Let the machines make people smarter,
Right.
and it doesn't mean just a data scientist who is going to be delivering all that value for the business. It means AI and ML should be used by everyone in the organization, not just one group.
Okay, that those are amazing insights, Dave. Also, since you were talking about BI as well, I did see a question coming from Aditi there. How is AtScale bridging the gap between AI and BI? Interesting.
Yeah, that's a great one. So the semantic layer turns out to be an awesome place to bridge that gap. So you
Right.
have the business teams, and the business teams are using their BI tools, and they're largely doing what's called descriptive analysis. Descriptive analysis is more historical analysis. So what happened yesterday?
Hmm.
And then maybe what they'll do also is they'll also do diagnostic analysis. So they'll take it a step further and say, okay, why did that happen yesterday?
Hmm.
But that's kind of the extent of it. And then you move over to the data science teams, and they're asking, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? And if what happens tomorrow, that's predictive analysis. They can then say, okay, if I know what's going to happen tomorrow, what should I do about it? And that's prescriptive analysis. So that's the sort of full range of analysis from descriptive to prescriptive. Now, today, each of those silos, those teams or silos, are doing
Hmm.
that individual sort of levels of analysis. But I can tell you that the business user would like to be able to predict sales tomorrow and compare those to sales that happened in the past. And the data scientist
Right.
would like to know if their model is drifting and to be able to compare their predictions to actual data. So they both need the same data. They both need the full spectrum to be better at their jobs, and the application developers need to build those into their applications so they can make data driven applications. So the semantic layer is the place where you can collaborate on that. So if the data scientists can write their predictions and their features back to the semantic layer, it means that other data scientists can use those predictions and features to do their own analysis and build their own models, and the business users can use that analysis to better predict what's going to happen in the future to make better business decisions. So the semantic layer becomes that unifying thread that ties
Hmm.
together BI and AI. And so we're really excited about that. We released something we
Yeah.
call AI Link very recently, which allows our users to use Python and in a Jupyter notebook or in an Auto ML platform to write those predictions and features back to our semantic layer so that it can be shared with the rest of the data audience.
Oh, this is great. Also, quick question here, Dave. If folks want to learn more about AtScale, which is the best place, do we have resources where people can learn more about it? I know for a fact that you conduct a lot of webinars, so would love to learn more about that for our audience.
Yeah, if you go to atscale.com and you go into resources, we have
Okay.
some great we have a great set of resources. So I really love our webinar series. It's a panel. They're panel discussions with
Yeah.
some really interesting people that have perspectives, some subject matter experts, people who are really doing it, to some of the leading vendors out there, to Bill Inman, who's the father of the data warehouse, talking about the next stage of data. So it's not a commercial. It's not a commercial for AtScale.
Yeah.
It's really good if you want to learn about a subject, especially about the bridging of AI and BI is a common one. We've done a lot of things about the semantic layer. The other thing is case studies, and they're case studies with well-known names in the business, and Geez, I mean, I learned so much from our customers, and just in talking to them, I've learned things like data as a product is something that Wayfair and Tyson Foods has talked a lot about, and that's really opened my eyes about treating data just as on the same level as the products that they produce, and that's a really great concept. Data for everyone is also a concept that I learned from our customers, and that's really opened my eyes in terms of how I think about what our mission is at AtScale. And so it's a great set of resources to hear from people much smarter than me about what they're doing and what the future lies.
Yes, fair enough. Also, when you speak about data for everyone, what do you think? Since we have been obviously hearing a lot around data literacy, and data literacy is also one of the most important topic that people want to learn more about, and everyone wants to be data literate. So, what are your thoughts on data literacy, Dave?
Yeah, I did a panel discussion with Starbucks
Wow.
and Bull.com and a couple others where we talked about data literacy, and that's a really good one because I learned a lot in that discussion. Data literacy is a semantic layer is important, but knowing that it exists
Mm.
requires literacy. It requires marketing, honestly. And so part of the function of data literacy is an internal marketing campaign to get people to understand the tools that are available to them, so that they can actually be self-serve and use all the tools that the enterprise has created for them. Because a lot of it
Right.
is just about a knowledge gap to knowing that they exist. So part of data literacy is a marketing campaign to say use data and this is how you can use it. The other part that is really interesting is programs, training programs,
Mm.
and so internal training programs that people can learn on their own and take courses,
Mm.
and then test in those courses to be able to chart their path along the maturity spectrum when it comes to data literacy. And some of the best organizations I work with have put in those programs in place, and they've made it so that it's part of how people get measured in terms of how literate they are in data, and that becomes part of how how they're reviewed and how they succeed in the organization. And I think those are really great programs that make everybody a better data driven decision maker.
Definitely, I agree. Also, Dave, Dustin agrees to what you say. Your internal marketing campaigns around data is really important. 100%.
100%.
Um, okay. Moving back to something, a question that I can see, and it's from Manisha. What, according to you, are the reasons for failing AI projects? Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a panel discussion coming out on this, and
Wow.
that's one of the questions is why do AI projects fail? And this goes back to what we were talking about before, and some of the
Mm.
questions from your audience was that if you don't involve a subject matter expert, you're bound to fail. So the data scientist needs to be tightly coupled with the subject matter expert, because the subject matter expert is going to be able to ensure that there's a return on that investment, and that the things that the data scientist is predicting are predicting are going to be something that the business can use. So I see, and again, it's like it's been for the experts I talk to, when you don't have that team of coupling the business with the data scientists, you are definitely bound to fail.
Right.
And the most success has been when you bring those teams together and you run it as a program
Mm.
versus a science experiment.
Yes, definitely. This is great, Dave. Thanks for sharing. Also, would love to obviously join your webinar where there'll be a panel discussion around it, why AI projects fail. So, would love to join there. Okay, moving forward, I just wanted to learn more about what would be some of the tips and tricks for organizations that are looking to migrate their analytics infrastructure to the cloud. What would be your thoughts there? Dave?
Tips and tricks for migrating their analytics infrastructure to the cloud. That's a great one. Uh, Look, it's a I like the I like the approach of, when you think about your internal data warehouses, you're loading those data warehouses from a set of files, or from some source. And what I've seen our customers do successfully is that rather than trying to re-architect the schemas and all those data flows for the cloud, that the initial first step is literally to point those pipelines to the cloud and to that cloud data warehouse with as little change as possible, so that you have actually parallel loads. Your old infrastructure is being loaded at the same time your new infrastructure is being loaded. And by doing that, you can then obviously do comparisons and do reconciliation and make sure that things in this new platform are working correctly and that you haven't missed anything. And you can also understand what that profile is from a performance and from a cost profile, so that there's no big ahas when you move to production. You get that first cloud bill and you're like, what? I didn't know it was going to cost this much. And so that's been an approach I've seen customers use. Literally, just don't change anything. Just parallel load, double load the data into your new data platforms, and then start to do some experimentation first on that new infrastructure, and then choose again, same as before. Choose a use case where there's a whole lot of pain today, and migrate that use case first, so you can deliver some value and show value in that investment right away.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, there's another question coming in from Bana Ramtak. Interesting. Who's using more semantics layer, a data analyst or a data scientist?
Yeah, well, you know what, I would say today for sure a data analyst, and because semantic layers really are very new, just new to everyone, first of all. But a
Exactly.
semantic layer has always embedded in BI tools has been a very familiar concept. And so the business analysts and the data analysts has been, understands a semantic layer because they've been using one, that's been wedded to their visualization tool for years. So when you separate that out, they get it. The data scientist has always gone to the raw data, and have always been sort of roll up the sleeves and do data engineering, the nasty data engineering on their own, with open source tools like Spark and the like. So it's been a very, very high bar for the data scientists, because they need to really understand not just data, but also how to get it all operating and performant so they can build and train their models. It's a really high bar. So I think that the data scientist of the future is going to be a citizen data scientist. It's going to be a blend of that data analyst. And the tools are going to allow that data analyst to be able to predict the future and create new features, because the tools are going to help them to do that. So I'm saying that today the semantic layer is being consumed by the data analyst, but in the very near future, you're going to see the data scientists and the citizen data scientists become just as active a participant in taking advantage of a semantic layer.
Is it also the folks who love low code, no code would be able to use it, Dave?
Yeah, it's like and I think that, look, I think that any good platform needs to be able to have both interfaces.
Exactly.
Because if you just do a no code, low code, and so it's an application to basically define that semantic layer, or define your model, your AI model. Sometimes a developer, it's more efficient for a developer who can write code and check it into GitHub, and that might be a more efficient way of doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of both. So I never like to say go no code or low code. I think you need to do both. I think you need to have a programmable interface so that your application developers who are comfortable writing code can do it without an interface. I think you need to have an application interface for those who don't want to write code and who rather do and build things visually. So I think you need both.
Yeah, makes sense. It gives you obviously an individual to play on a larger ground where you have both the opportunities there. So yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's take a quick question from Mike Nash here. What is your thoughts, predictions for the data landscape in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah. So in data 2020, so I think that what we're going to see here is uh, we're definitely going to see the continuing the acceleration of the migration to the cloud. Companies that aren't there yet are going to be migrating in mass. So you're going to see the cloud data warehouses like Snowflake, Databricks, Google BigQuery continue to be become more popular and to be more ubiquitous. I think you're going to see the blending of AI and BI. And I think that that's really the future of AI and ML, is I think you're going to see that blend and those two disciplines blend into one. I think you're going to start to see more of that, and you're going to see more of that in products coming out in 2022. The other thing I think you're going to see is you're going to see it's already started, but the war between Databricks and Snowflake, which I think you should watch. Databricks comes at it from the data science angle, and they're moving into the analytics space and the business analytics space. And then Snowflake began the business analytics space and is now moving into the AI and ML space. And they're already they're already clashing. And if you saw anything recent with their TPC-DS benchmarks that they ran, I feel a little bit guilty about this because we were the first to run those TPC-DS benchmarks, and now they're running them on their own, and they're clashing over them. It's an interesting read. So I would look at those two. I would look at those two really important industry players, Databricks and Snowflake, because I think you're going to see them be a lot more noisier in 2022, and really fighting for the hearts and minds of the enterprise.
No, these are fantastic insights. Thanks for sharing, Dave. Okay, quick question. Since you were mentioning a little about the blend of AI and BI, so how would you explain the convergence of AI and BI? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that on two fronts. When it comes to building models and making predictions, I think that the auto ML platforms are making it easier for the non PhDs and the non data engineers to actually use AI and ML tools to produce value. So I think there you're seeing that's from a persona perspective. So I think you're seeing more the business analysts being able to become and do data science work and machine learning work. And I think that's where the term citizen data scientist comes. So from the personnel perspective, I see that kind of convergence happening from a people perspective. From a tool perspective, I see more auto ML platforms like Data Robot and Data IQ and SageMaker. And I think those will become easier to use on the tooling front. And I expect to see the techniques with outlier analysis and the like to be embedded in BI tools like a Tableau and a Power BI, so that people who are using those tools are using and doing ML and using and leveraging ML without even being aware of it. So I think that on the tooling perspective, on the BI tool front, you're going to see that merging of AI and BI there.
Fair enough. Thanks for that information, Dave. And Mike really says really exciting 2022 and beyond. Thanks for answering. Thanks, Mike, for that question. It really got us some great insights. So, all right, before I get into a very interesting question from Ravina Ostwal, obviously, I just want to remind folks, we have 2021 entries already. You can actually mention hashtag @scale and you have a chance to win some swag. So let's move into this question. This question is very interesting, actually. Will AI replace human ever?
Well, I don't know. I have a layman's opinion on that, and self-driving cars, I'm sorry, but I just don't believe it, because until every car is a self-driving car, as long as you have humans in the mix, you can't predict human behavior, and it's just that's what makes us so amazing, is that we're unpredictable, and so no, I don't ever think AI will replace humans, and I think that just like anything else, AI and ML are tools to make us smarter, and to automate away a lot of the drudgery that we have to do. And I mentioned this before. It's ridiculous that people have to ask so many questions through their BI tools to find something that is meaningful to them. And if AI and ML can simply allow us to ask better questions or even fewer questions to get to our answer, that's a big improvement. But I don't, definitely not in our lifetime. Definitely not gonna happen. And I'm interested to see what's gonna help, what's happening with self-driving cars, because again, it's like I'm not gonna be one of those people who flips it on and gets in the back seat and reads a book. I just don't trust it for
Yeah.
as long as there's humans on the road.
Yeah, that's so true. Thanks for sharing that. Nice question, Ravina. Okay, it's time. We already have the comments in. We have 23 folks who have participated for the raffle. Let's get the ball rolling. All the best, guys. Thank you for participating. Let's see who the winner is. All right. Our first winner is Rakesh Kumar. Rakesh Kumar, thank you very much and congratulations. I will reach out to you for your address and you win a swag. And let's go for a second winner. Let's see who it is. We're giving two opportunities. AtScale has been kind, so let's see who our second winner is. It is Dustin. Dustin, congratulations. And thanks for asking amazing questions, Dustin, and sharing your insights. Okay, Dave, want to know more about obviously AtScale. What is next for AtScale? What's coming up? 2022 is just nearby. So what's coming up for AtScale?
Yeah, we have some exciting things that we're working on. Data is everywhere in the cloud. And then when we think about data in the cloud, we're thinking about putting the data that we collect ourselves and we put and store in the cloud, like in Snowflake or Databricks, for example. But the data, there's data hidden away in every SaaS application we use. When it comes to Salesforce, that's sitting on Salesforce servers. When you think about your Jiras, that's sitting on Jira servers. When you think about your accounting systems, they're all in the cloud now.
Right.
So there's so much data hidden away in SaaS applications. And what you're going to see with AtScale is that we're going to extend our reach, not just in data platforms for first-party data, but also including SaaS applications and third-party data, so that users can be much more powerful because they'll have much more data available at their fingertips, again, without any data movement, all done virtually in the semantic layer. So we're going to extend that semantic layer to a much broader range of data in 2022.
Wow, super exciting time coming up. Can't wait for the 2.0 version where I can actually interview on the developments that have happened at AtScale. So thank you very much, Dave. This was actually very insightful. I'm sure the audience loved it. Just one last question before we wrap this up is, if folks need to reach out to you and have questions around semantic layer, around BI, AI, which is the best place?
You know what? It's very easy. I'm Dave@atscale.com.
Wow.
So that's one of the benefits of being the founder, is that I get to pick my own email address. So if you have any questions, Dave@atscale.com. I always love to talk to other people, smart people, and I learn something every time I do. So thanks to everybody for listening. Me, drone on, and Ravit. So thanks so much for hosting and creating a really great discussion here.
Always a pleasure, Dave, and thanks for sharing those insights. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.